things. I don't think it's all sunshine and rainbows, and I don't think it's all bad. I just think you experience so many different emotions and so many different things. Selling my company in the first year of also having a child, it's like there's a lot of change happening at once. Becoming a mom is so far in my life the biggest change I've ever been through. I feel like a lot of women would probably agree that the biggest identity shift that you go through in your life is becoming a parent, becoming a mom. And to be going through that while also going through this insane business process it was really interesting for those two things to be going on in parallel. I felt really stretched in a lot of ways. I just felt like this last year was a really big growth and learning year for me. And when I look back on it now, being 29, turning 30 this year, I'm like, wouldn't have changed a thing. As many ups and downs as there was, as hard as it was for me to do all these major things at one time, I really feel like it strengthened me in a lot of ways.
Let's talk about the acquisition for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Rhode was only out for 3 years. You had 10 products, which for a beauty brand is not a lot of products for this like
small
big acquisition moment. And the deal was for up to $1 billion. That was the number that you had in your mind. Why?
I'm somebody who really believes in like what you say out loud, is very important. Our words are important. The kind of manifestations we put out there into the world are very important. So from a very early on conversation when we were just kind of like, hey, what would it look like? What would we want the number to be? I was like, it has to be this number. I will not go for less. Like that is just, it was a goal. So that was that was the line I drew in the sand and the goal that I set.
Your potential customers in the EU have really been clamoring. I've seen the Reddit threads. When is Rhode coming to Sephora EU? Can we make some news today?
So we are launching in Sephora EU in the fall.
Okay.
I'm allowed to say the fall.
Okay, amazing.
We're taking it a territory at a time.
Yeah. But that's a big one.
But I am.
EU is huge.
Yeah, the EU is huge, and I am eager. South America is another really important one to me. My mom's from Brazil. Yeah, so like being able to do that will be it's another big goal of mine. Speaking of goals, to be able to be in all these places.
I was reading a story in Vogue. It said when Rhode launched, the product was better than anyone expected, which just sort of struck me because, okay, so you're saying that the expectations were low. Did you feel like you had an uphill battle to climb in proving that you could really deliver?
So I understood that there was definitely a lot of side-eyeing of, oh, here we go again. Here's another brand. Why should people buy my skincare? Why should people trust it? So I went into it knowing that there was a lot of that question mark around it, and that's why I brought people so in on the process. I documented everything. I am such a skincare like fanatic and nerd. Like I wanted to show people that so that they understood that I'm really about it, and I'm not somebody who's just going to sit here and try to peddle you a product because I don't think that's necessary. We focus on inviting you into this whole entire world that really fits into your lifestyle, and I think that goes so far beyond skincare. I think, how does it make you feel? Yeah. I wanted to invoke feeling around the brand.
I think that's such a good point, and young consumers, I think they don't just want to buy a product. They want to buy into or opt into a world. They really want to support brands that I think align with their own values and their worldview. What would you say are Rhode's values in 2026, and how do they overlap with your own?
I do think that the accessibility and the inclusivity were two things that were really, really important to me because I want Rhode to be for everyone. I never want it to feel like it's not for somebody because I really believe that skincare is for everyone. And listen, I know when brands when they get really hyped, it can feel kind of like it's this like club that you don't get to be a part of. And that's never been intentional with Rhode. Like when we've sold out of things and stuff, it's not to make it inaccessible that's actually always like panicked me because I'm like, I always want people to be able to have access to it. And I want to continue to take feedback and make the brand better. That's what I think having a great brand is you listen to your customer and you listen to your consumer and say, okay, maybe this is not, maybe it works for me, but I need it to work for everyone. I need it to work for you.
Can you share an example of some feedback that you received and you thought that's actually really smart? We should make that change.
We had a formulation issue with our peptide lip treatment, and it had like this grainy texture.
Right.
You know, and when that happened, I was distraught. I was like, this happened right when it was in the beginning of the brand too, and our lip treatments were our hero in the start. There was so much feedback of that, and then people being like, I'm putting my Rhode in hot water to like melt the graininess. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, we cannot have people, because I think what makes me the most upset is I would never want somebody to spend.
There was a time not so long ago when the name Hailey Bieber conjured images of razor-sharp cheekbones under a flashbulb, a cool detachment that felt almost architectural, a woman who moved through the world like she had nothing to prove and even less to explain. She was the girl who married the most famous pop star of a generation and seemed to carry the weight of that decision with an eerie kind of grace, never flinching, never breaking, never letting the noise get too close. But something shifted. Something small and enormous and utterly irreversible happened, and now when Hailey Bieber speaks, there is a warmth threading through every word that simply was not there before. And the world is only just beginning to notice it. At the Met Gala 2026, surrounded by the most extravagant display of fashion and celebrity the cultural calendar has to offer, Hailey did something almost radical. She talked about her son. Not her gown, not her brand, not the noise that had swirled around her marriage for years. She talked about Jack Blues Bieber, and in doing so, she became the most interesting person in the room. That is the quiet power of a woman who has finally found something that silences everything else. Justin and Hailey welcomed Jack Blues in June 2024, and those close to the couple described the arrival as nothing short of miraculous. The pregnancy was something they had very much wished and prayed for, and anyone who has watched Hailey speak about her son since can feel exactly that reverence in every sentence she forms around his name. This was not an accident of celebrity life. This was something they built deliberately, quietly, against a backdrop of rumors and scrutiny that would have unraveled most people. Hailey's mornings now belong entirely to Jack. She wakes between 7 and 8, because her son usually stirs around past, and she refuses to miss it. They make coffee together, the two of them, a toddler and his mother, in whatever kitchen the day offers, and Hailey describes this ritual with the kind of specificity that tells you it is sacred to her. It is the most unguarded she has ever allowed herself to be in public, and it is completely, disarmingly beautiful. On a recent podcast appearance, Hailey described motherhood with a simplicity that cut right through everything. It is so fun, she said. She had always known she wanted kids, always wanted to be a mom, but when it actually happens you never quite know what to expect. She laughed about Jack's obsession with basketball, how she went to wake him from a nap and his very first word was basketball, and in that laugh was an entire universe of a woman who has finally found her footing. When asked about more children, Hailey did not hedge. She definitely wants more than one, she said plainly. Some days she wants 2. Some days she wants 5. It is the answer of someone who is no longer performing contentment but actually living inside it. And at the center of all of it, steady and constant, is Justin. The love story that the internet spent years trying to complicate turns out to be exactly what it always looked like from the inside. Two people who chose each other, keep choosing each other, and are now raising someone who says basketball before he says good morning.